Let's talk about headlines and caption writing. It is the most creative part when it comes to the editing. Most of the editors find satisfaction in this creative work and find it compensatory since it goes beyond correcting something. Nevertheless, it is the most tricky part as well, since it requires special skill, wit, and alertness so that the headline gives the most appropriate meaning to the story and makes it attractive. To keep it perfectly fit into the given space, the copy editor is expected to go for precise character or letter counts in a headline. There are certain rules, and here comes the role of the style book. For example, headlines are written in present tense to give the story a sense of immediacy. Some of the newspapers strictly follow the ethics and do not allow misleading headlines with double meaning, ambiguous, sensational headlines, or headlines with bad taste or any sort of hatred must be avoided. Similarly, whenever you report casualties and write headlines, always go for official figures. We also have certain rules for visual comprehension. For instance, we avoid split words and abbreviations in headlines unless until they are absolutely necessary. If I ask you the relevance of headlines in a newspaper, what will your answer be? Yes, a headline with appropriate type, font and font size certainly proves to be a gateway to the story. A clear, direct, and crisp headline provides authenticity and establishes the importance or priority of a story. Also, it beautifies the page with a balanced design and layout that offers reader with a refined reading experience. Now, the other question arises: how to decide the appropriate headline? For that, we should have the knowledge of different types of headlines. Looking at different formats, we can have a long list of types of headlines. From single column or cross line to double-decker or double column headlines to banner and flag, we observe various types of headlines used in newspapers. Yet, on the basis of regular usage, there have been certain patterns drawn and we get some concrete types of headlines. For example, B.R. Gupta describes 7 conventional headlines patterns. Let's see those. The first one is cross-line, that is the single column headline in small types or fonts. When such single column headline is given in 2 lines, it is called double cross line. The second one is drop line or stepped line. It is a multi-line headline where each succeeding line is indented with increased margin. The third one is full line headline, that is the one stretched fully to touch the column rules on both sides. Then comes the flush left that can simply be understood in terms of left alignment. These are 2-3 lines long headlines. Fifth one is inverted pyramid. As the name suggests, in this type of multi-line headline, the topmost line remains the widest to touch the column rules of both sides, while the succeeding lines get narrower in the order to give an impression of upside down pyramid. Waistline is a type of headline generally given in 3-line pattern where the first and the third line are of equal length, while the second midline in the center is narrow in length. It is used in double or 3 column stories and even lead stories. 7. It is multilinear and right aligned, where on the left hand the lines get shorter in succeeding order. The first line is spread through the column rule and remains the widest. There are more headlines like kicker, that is the second line in different font or type style, and size above the main headline. Hammer, that is the reverse of kicker in all capital letters, and there are also jump heads, the headlines given with the continued stories on next page. These are the other conventional headlines we can say. Nevertheless, there is no hard and fast rule for writing headlines and the field is open for creativity. Formatting provides display value to the content. Let us understand this with example of a building. Just like a building with different rooms, a reader finds newspaper with its broad structure where different stories are placed according to their relevance. Also, we find formatting tools in the form of headlines, slugs, and blurbs to enter to the content just like gate and doors in the building. While copy editor sets the stories and headlines, the news editor and assistant news editor decide the placement of stories with page layout. Again, like an architect who draws layout of the building. Thus, editors are the line drawers who structure the content, that is, stories, headlines, photographs, captions, graphs, caricatures, cartoons, etc. on a dummy. In some organizations, there are separate makeup artists to perform this task. The whole content is clubbed together on a page, placed in a structured manner, and entry points are located. The whole process is executed in such a manner that it provides directions to the reader and increases the readability. For example, use of a slug or a keyword to suggest the subject of the content, or an anchor, that is a human angle story placed at the bottom of the front page to balance the content, or simply the use of different typefaces or fonts such as serif or sans serif in different sizes ranging from 14 to 84 points and colors. The editor's desk is one center where the stories from all the bureaus come to be printed on the newspaper. From the wide variety of stories coming from remote areas, villages, towns, cities, and metropolis, the editors prioritize the stories according to their importance. It is done by adhering to the news values, readers' interest, and the policy of the newspaper organization. Accordingly, the editors decide the first lead, the second lead, and other stories to be placed on the page. The story count, that is the total number of stories to be put on a page, also remains one of the important factors here. Along with the text or words in stories, the newspaper content also includes pictures, graphics, caricatures, cartoons, and other material. These are important component of newspaper for the simple reason of balancing. Accordingly, the pictures, the size in columns and column type such as indent, rule, full out, justification, etc. are chalked out with the decided placement of the stories. Let us discuss layout now. As we know that the layout means the arrangement of content on a page, it is usually the sub-editor who arranges the news typographically on a page. The content comes from all directions ranging from social, political, economic, and cultural fields. The content including text, pictures, caricatures, graphics is organized for readability. Thus, the editors plan and design the page layout with objective to put their readers with ease to help them in recognizing the important news of the day. This minimizes readers' effort and optimizes attractiveness of the content. Notably, visual elements like picture or graph also enhance the value of the story. Although there are conventions and patterns available today with software such as PageMaker, Quark Express, etc., which we know as templates in technological terms, yet it is essentially a creative field in print production. For example, meaning is created through providing picture without caption in texted story, or sometimes a picture with a 4-word caption to it with a proper placement is more than enough to tell the whole story. This showcases the importance of layout. Let's discuss this more elaborately. So, on the basis of the processes involved, we can now understand the relevance of layout in print production, especially in newspaper or a magazine production. The layout is an essential part of print production because through the process, the editors prioritize the news. The layout provides the balance and proportion to the content on a page through proper placement. The conventional structures provide the newspaper or a magazine brand with consistency to build long-term relationship with its readers. Also, as C. Frost puts it, the layout provides an easy to manage format to both the content provider and the reader in general. Let's discuss typography. Since we have already discussed the role of layout, can you tell me why the visual elements are important? Yes, the visual elements and devices create visual framework and visual appeal for the readers. The very first component in this list is letters or typeface, that is called typography. It sets the overall tone of a page. Let us understand this function with different typeface of magazine and newspapers. While magazines and advertising content go for a lot of experiments in typography, the newspapers keep it simple to create a serious sense. Again, we observe this difference in broadsheet and tabloid. For text, there are devices like use of box, bullet points, or stand first, that is, adding special introduction or explanation before the story. Similarly, more experiment could be done with the use of type-related tools such as drop letter, bold, italics, caps, or different colors to it. Interestingly, empty space in print equally acts as an important element of the layout. For example, with the use of kerning, the space is either expanded or reduced. Similarly, space is adjusted above or below the lines with the process called leading to create the desired impact. Another visual element is color. It makes the text more prominent. Color contrast works like drawing and highlighter to separate the needed content from the rest. Other than black and white, in text, colors like blue and red are experimented mostly with headlines, blurbs, or slug in newspapers. White on black, that is called wob, or black on grey, in other words, bog, is also used in tabloids in limited stances, mostly to separate adjacent headlines. Similarly, use of serif typeface is visually seen as traditional and mostly used in headlines by mainstream broadsheet newspapers, while sans serif is seen to be modern, clean typeface and mostly used by tabloid newspapers. Thus, the experiments in design and layout within the house style of layout structures help readers to navigate through the text. We have seen how visual editing provides the content with pace, seriousness, and feel. Let us discuss the physical aspect. At broader level, more important stories are given the space above the fold, while light or human interest stories are placed at the bottom as anchor stories. This process forms a balance by not making the front page too heavy for a reader. Fold is also taken into consideration while placing a picture. The pictures are usually not placed into the middle of the fold. However, it is very interesting to note that in magazines, center spread is commonly a picture, more commonly an advertisement. So, coming back to the headlines. Headlines are so designed that they could be identified separately even if adjacently placed. The inside page should also be designed in a balanced manner. Generally, advertisement department of the publication provides a structure with reserved space for advertisements. The layout of the stories is then planned within the empty space provided on dummy. The sub-editor makes the copy to fit into the space in best suitable way. The typeface stabilizes the page for physical appearance. The placement of captions, width of columns and rules, or the narrow lines between different stories on a printed page all acts as a visual device to lead the readers. While these devices be the entry point, including headlines and pictures, the grid of columns in broadsheet or birdliner or tabloid provide a broad structure to the newspaper. Consequently, a newspaper or magazine design creates gateways and also preserves the continuity so that a reader does not lose interest anywhere while reading the content. To fulfill the psychological needs of regular readers, the newspapers and magazines tend to follow a fixed pattern instead of modifying the layout of pages on a regular basis. Instead, depending on the need of specific topic, slight changes are made in design. Generally, bold headlines attract readers more than the smaller ones, while smaller text utilizing much of the available space is taken for serious reading by the readers.